When I first heard about the village of Cold Creek, I thought it was just another one of those ghost stories locals tell to scare travelers. A town that vanishes after sunset? Please. I'd heard similar stories all over the States, but this one had details that didn't add up. People said you could drive into Cold Creek in the afternoon, walk its old streets, meet its quiet townsfolk. But if you stayed past sundown, you'd never find your way out. The next morning, the place would be gone. Completely gone. I'm a travel vlogger. My channel is all about exploring forgotten places in America. Ghost towns, abandoned highways, creepy landmarks. So of course, when a subscriber sent me an email with GPS coordinates and a single line, "Go before sunset, leave before dark," I packed my gear. I left my motel in West Virginia early morning. The air smelled of pine and cold mist. The GPS said Cold Creek was only 30 miles away, but after 15 minutes, my signal dropped. No cell bars, no internet, only the old asphalt road curling through the woods. I recorded my intro for the vlog. Hey everyone, it's Ryan here. Today we're chasing another ghost story, a village that's supposed to disappear after sunset. Locals call it Cold Creek. Let's see if it's real. The forest felt alive, trees too close to the road, shadows too long for morning. I noticed something strange, no birds, no sound, just the hum of my car engine. Then came the sign, "Welcome to Cold Creek, population 63. The wood was cracked, letters barely readable. A crow flew across the sign, the first sign of life I'd seen in hours. I smiled. Finally, something alive. But when I reached for my camera to capture it, the crow was gone. Cold Creek was quiet. Not dead, just quiet. Old wooden houses lined the main road. The air smelled faintly of rain and dust. I parked near what looked like a general store, grabbed my camera and started filming. It's about noon. The place looks old but not abandoned. Doors are open, chairs are out. Maybe it's just a really small community. Then, from behind me, a soft voice. "You shouldn't be here." An elderly woman stood near the store doorway, wrinkled gray hair tied back. She looked at me with eyes that didn't blink often. "I'm just visiting," I said, keeping my camera low. "Then visit before the sun goes," she replied. Before I could ask what that meant, she turned back into the store. I laughed nervously to my camera. "Okay, that's not creepy at all." Inside the store, shelves were stacked neatly. Flour, canned food, some toys, but everything looked old, like it hadn't been restocked for years. I bought a soda. The label was from a brand discontinued a decade ago. "Is this still good?" I joked. The cashier smiled faintly. "Everything here is still good, until dark." I kept exploring, filming buildings and taking drone shots. Around 3 p.m., a man in a dusty coat walked up to me. He looked like a local, rough hands, pale skin, dark eyes. "You're filming?" he asked. "Yeah, travel vlog. You live here?" He nodded slowly. "Then don't stay. We've told enough outsiders, nobody listens." "Why?" I asked. "What happens after sunset?" He looked up. The sun was already moving toward the trees. "We don't stay to see it." He started walking away before I could say another word. By 4:30 p.m., I was filming near an old church on the hill. My drone battery died mid-flight, even though it had been full minutes earlier. Then my camera flickered. I checked my watch. It had stopped ticking at 4:44 p.m. I shook it, tapped the glass, nothing. Then the church bell rang. 1, 2, 3, 4. It stopped. No one was in the church. I looked up at the bell tower. The rope moved on its own. A cold wind rolled through the village even though the trees were still. I turned around and noticed something else. The people I'd seen earlier, were gone. No one on the streets. No sound from the store. Just the creaking of wooden signs. As I packed my gear, a little girl appeared near my car. She looked about 8, wearing a white dress with old lace sleeves. "You shouldn't stay," she said softly. "I know," I replied, "and everyone keeps saying that, but why?" She looked toward the mountains and whispered, "Because when the sun touches the trees, the shadows wake up." Before I could ask what that meant, she ran off between the houses. I chased her with my camera. She turned the corner, gone, just gone. I finally decided to leave. My gut told me this place was wrong. I started the car. It sputtered and died. Tried again. Nothing. All my devices were dead. Phone, camera, even my car clock. And then, silence. I stepped outside. The air had changed. Thicker, colder. The sun hovered above the tree line, blood orange, melting fast. As the last light faded, I saw it. Fog creeping from the woods like smoke. It rolled across the streets, swallowing everything. Shapes began to move inside it. Human shapes, not walking, gliding. One of them passed through a wall. Another stopped and turned toward me. Their faces weren't faces, just hollow outlines of where eyes should have been. I ran back to the car, slammed the door, and hit record on my backup camera, the only one still working. "This is Ryan. If you find this footage, I'm in Cold Creek. Something's happening here. I don't know if this place is real anymore." The recording glitched. Static filled the frame. And then the bell rang again. 5 times this time. The fog was now everywhere, thick enough to hide the entire main street. The wooden sign outside the window flickered like a mirage. "Welcome to Cold Creek, population 63. But this time, below it, new words had appeared. Population 64. I froze. My breath fogged the glass. I whispered, "That's me." The screen cut to black. If you're watching this, it means my backup camera kept rolling. It means I made it through at least 1 more hour in Cold Creek. The sign outside still says population 64. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a prank. It changed when the fog rolled in. It counted me. I'm going to keep talking, even if the audio cuts. Even if this thing turns my words into static again. I need a record. I need you to know how it happens. The car wouldn't start. My phone was a glass brick. The main camera flickered like a dying moth. Only the little action cam, a cheap, rugged thing, kept a dim red light alive. I clipped it to my jacket. The fog had weight. Not like a weather thing, more like stepping into a childhood memory you don't trust. The street was a smear of gray, the porches on either side stretching longer than they should, like someone pulled the village at the corners. I cracked the car door and listened. Footsteps, but not quite on wood, not quite on dirt. The sound was just off enough to make my skin crawl, like hearing someone breathing through a wall right behind you. I whispered into the mic. "It's full night now. I don't know the time." My watch stopped at 4:44. The bell rang 5 times just before the fog. No church keeper in sight. I'm stepping out. The moment my shoes hit the ground, the fog adjusted to me, swelled around my knees. Something glided across the street 20 yards away. If it had a face, it was one sketch away from being finished. I kept my voice steady for the camera. "I'm heading uphill toward the church. If the bell's moving, maybe there's a person, maybe there's power." I didn't believe that, but it was something to say. The church door was open, a rectangle of darker dark. Inside smelled like old cedar and a wet book. I panned the action cam. The footage hiccuped, then corrected itself like the camera was trying to forget what it saw. Pews on either side, a rope by the entrance. I touched it, warm. I looked up. The bell rope moved once, then stilled. No one on the balcony. Behind the altar, a narrow side door was cracked. I pushed it open and found a cramped utility room. A broom, a basin, a metal shelf with a hand-cranked lantern, and an audio recorder, one of those cheap handheld ones tourists use for lectures. It blinked green, battery full. I pressed play. Static. Then my voice. Not someone who sounded like me. My voice. Breathless, too close to the mic. A whisper decorated with panic. If you find this, you're me. Or you're close enough. Don't let them count you. Don't stand under the bell when it moves, and don't follow children when they run. A click. The recorder stopped itself. I didn't breathe for a full 5 seconds, then I hit play again, harder, as if pressing more firmly would squeeze more out of it. The recorder coughed, the same half sentence, and died at the same point like a song on a scratched CD. I pocketed it and started talking to my audience, to you. Someone left this for me. Or I left it. No. That's stupid. Unless time is broken here. Okay. The recorder says don't let them, whoever they are, count me. But the sign already did. Population 64. If anyone ever visits Cold Creek, if anyone ever thinks about staying for the night, don't. The floorboards creaked behind me. I turned quick. No one. But the door was more open than before. The fog in the nave had thickened like breath on cold glass. I heard pews shift without hands. I backed out, keeping the camera up. As I crossed the threshold, the bell rang once. Not a clean ring. A wet, dragging chime that sounded like it had rust in its throat. I made for the main road, head down, narrating everything to keep myself in one piece. The houses looked the same as when I'd arrived, but a few details had slipped a step to the left. A porch chair sitting where I swear a barrel had been. A wind chime that hadn't existed at noon. Every sign creaked in a timing that felt practiced, as though the buildings had rehearsed night for 100 years and were relieved they'd reached their lines. I jogged, then ran. The road curved, dead-ending into a small bridge I hadn't noticed earlier. Underneath the creek, black water slow as syrup. I crossed the bridge and stepped onto the same street again, facing the church on the hill. I swallowed hard. Okay. The road loops. Not metaphorically, it just loops. I tried the opposite direction, past the general store. The window displayed goods with labels that weren't quite right. Brands I recognized, fonts I didn't. I passed them, kept going, breath misting. The houses thinned, the road widened. A stand of trees opened like a split curtain. And I came out next to my car. Not like I'd turned back accidentally. I had the camera's GPS coordinates, and if they'd meant anything in this fog, I could have overlaid the walk. But the action cam's map had gone as blank as my phone. I slapped the hood once, not angry, but to feel the metal of something real. It sounded dull, as if the car were filled with dirt. The sign across the street creaked. I turned the camera. Welcome to Cold Creek, population 64. The bottom edge curled forward like a lip. She appeared at the corner of the hardware store. The same girl I'd seen earlier, 8 years old. The white dress too clean for a place this dusty. She stood where the fog was thinner, as if she knew how to pick its seams. You didn't leave, she said, not accusing, just factual. I tried, I said. How does anyone get out at night? You don't. She turned her head, listening to something I couldn't hear. They don't like when you ask. Who are they? I asked, and the fog around my ankles cooled like it had answered for her. She looked back at me. They count. That's all they do at first. Then they whisper, then they copy. If you still don't leave, they finish. Finish what? She blinked as a knock echoed from an empty door across the street, 3 slow beats like a neighbor checking in just to be neighborly. The girl flinched. Don't follow knocks, she whispered. Don't stand under the bell, And when you hear 4 of something, anything, count out loud and step backward. I almost laughed. That's very specific. She didn't. It's all I have. I could have asked 100 questions, but some animal part of me was already learning. Questions cost you time here. Time costs you more than you think. I looked away just long enough to sweep the camera past the sign in the church. When I looked back, the girl wasn't there. The fog at my feet curled into a spiral and vanished under the car. The general store lights were on now. They hadn't been earlier. I tried the door. It opened with a bell that chimed 4 times. Ding, 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 ding. I leapt backward without thinking, counting out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. The bell stopped after the 3rd ding and swallowed the 4th somewhere in the rafters, like an animal gulping a fly. Okay, I thought, rules. Inside, the shelves had filled in. Where there had been gaps at noon, new goods sat in neat stacks. Canned peaches with prices stamped in cents. Motor oil with a label design I recognized from black and white photos. A stack of newspapers with the same date printed across 6 different mastheads. October 19th, but with different years, like someone had photocopied time with a sticky machine and the paper had doubled back on itself. I picked up the top paper. October 19th, 1961, headline, Mine Collapse Claims 7. A subhead circled by greasy fingerprints, town to hold bell vigil at dusk. Another paper beneath it, October 19th, 1975. Headline, Schoolhouse Shutters in Windstorm. A photo of the same church, rope hanging straight and still. Another, October 19th, 1989. Headline, Local Girl Missing at Sunset, Last Seen Near Creek. The photograph was grainy, a white dress, a face I didn't want to compare. I folded the stack closed and put it back carefully, like returning a sleeping child. Footsteps approached down the aisle. I turned my camera and saw the elderly woman from earlier. Same gray hair, same apron, eyes that didn't blink enough. She held a paper bag by the top as if it might float away. You stayed, she said. I didn't mean to. No one means to, not the first time. What happens the first time? She tilted her head as if listening to a radio on the far side of a wall. They learn you. They make a place for you to fit. Fit where? She set the bag on the counter and pulled out a glass bottle of soda, the old brand I joked about, and set it next to the register. She looked at my camera. If you want to leave, stop showing them your face. I lowered the camera instinctively. She smiled with that same faint, careful curve from the afternoon. Too late, she said softly. She slid the bag back toward herself, then blinked slow. And when her eyes opened again, she was 5 feet to the left, arms still extended where the bag had been. The space she had been standing in was filled with fog, like a cutout that had remembered it was smoke. I stepped back so fast the bell above the door chirped 4 times. I counted loud and reverse walked into a rack of travel maps for counties that didn't exist. When I looked back at the counter, the bag was gone. So was the woman. I found a mirror behind the counter, a long metallic strip used to watch aisles. My reflection lagged half a breath behind me. Not fun. I steadied the action cam, framed myself in profile, and spoke to the audience. Second rule confirmed. 4 is bad unless you answer it. This bell chimes in 4s and the sound wants you to forget one of the dings. I don't know why. It felt like a hiccup in my own counting. When I kept track out loud, it stopped trying. Found newspapers with the same date, different decades. Something happens here on October 19th, over and over. Maybe that's the mirror shifted, not slid, shifted. My reflection in the glass opened its mouth a fraction later than I did, then kept talking when I stopped. Maybe that's the problem with you, Ryan, the reflection said in my voice. You think stories wrap in one night. You think leaving is just a drive. You never learn to say goodbye to a town you don't belong to. I couldn't swallow. My throat forgot the order. My reflection turned toward the door without me and raised its hand in a wave. The bell dinged once. The recorder in my pocket clicked, no fingers on it, and played that same slice of my voice again. Don't let them count you. Copy, I whispered. They copy. I backed out of the store, camera down so the glass couldn't find my face. Outside, the fog had thinned to river ribbon. The church silhouette sat on the hill like a hat on a scarecrow. Somewhere close, a child laughed in a way no child laughs, like two consonants scraping together. I didn't follow. The path behind the church's side yard sloped toward a cemetery. My shoes slid on pine needles. Headstones rose like teeth, some leaning, some too new. I wasn't going to film here, not at night, not in a fog that knew my name. But the lantern in my hand pulled me downhill. The first headstone I read bore a last name I'd seen on the general store receipt spike earlier. Harlan. Date of death? October 19th, 1961. The day of the mine collapse. Next stone. Marta Vance. October 19th, 1975. The day of the windstorm. Third stone. Ella Keene. October 19th, 1989. The missing girl headline. I moved faster, the rose. Stuttered forward in time. 1997, 2003, 2011, always October 19th. When I reached the back row, where the grass had not yet fully claimed the earth, I found a stone without lichen, clean as a hotel sink. Ryan. The last name wasn't carved. The date was October 19th. No year. Someone had placed a small tin soldier at the base, as if to test whether the ground recognized it. It didn't. The toy was too new for the dirt. I stepped away, slow, careful, and counted without meaning to. 1 step, 2, 3, 4. I stopped, forced the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. My feet wanted to end on 4. I made them learn 8. Behind me, the bell rang twice, far away and underwater. Back in the church, the side room, the one with the recorder, had acquired a new object. A plastic case, cloudy and taped shut with yellowing scotch. I peeled the edge with my fingernail. Inside, a mini DV tape. The format my first camcorder used when I was 15. A label scratched with a ballpoint. Ryan. Don't watch this. I laughed at the ceiling, the kind of laugh that isn't a laugh. I set the tape down carefully and spoke into the camera. The town is leaving me notes in formats I can't play. Old papers, a tape I don't have a camera for, a recorder that only says one thing. It's like someone tried to warn me 100 different ways and each warning fell apart before it finished the sentence. I searched for a player because of course I did. The back of the church had a locked cabinet. I tugged once, twice. The door opened on the third, unhooking from a latch that had never seen oil. On the shelf, hymnals, a cracked projector, a glass jar full of coins, and miracle, an old mini DV camcorder with a battery I wouldn't trust to power a toy. I slid the tape in anyway and hit play. The viewfinder lit for exactly 2 seconds, long enough for a frame, a close-up of my face lit by the hand-crank lantern, eyes too wide, a whisper forming. Then the camera powered itself off. The tape whirred like a sigh. That's enough, I told the room. That's enough. The room agreed. The fog breathed against the threshold and stopped, as if a dog had discovered an invisible fence. I left the church because every angle in it had started to look like the mouth of something clever. On the porch, the fog parted down the center as if a car were coming. No engine, just the shape of a hood, then a windshield, then the impression of a driver who didn't exist, rolling past me at 3 miles an hour toward the square. I followed at a distance. When the invisible car reached the general store, it parked, the way muscle memory teaches you to park in your hometown. An easy right, a cut of the wheel, a correction. The phantom engine coughed once. Stopped. The store door opened by itself and let out one ding. I didn't count it. I held my breath instead. Somewhere behind me, a screen door clapped twice. Then twice again, then twice again. 6. My brain tried to arrange them into 3 pairs, tried to put them in a box labeled wind. But there was no wind. A knock bloomed from the house to my left. 3 beats, kind, neighborly. From the house across, the same 3. Behind me, another 3. "Don't follow knocks," the girl had said. I stood there breathing like a runner who'd missed the gun and let the knocks age out of the air. When the last one fell quiet, the sign at the edge of town creaked and I found myself turning without meaning to. Population 65. I counted the houses, the shadows in the fog, the sound of doors. I had the sudden stupid math of a child. 63 plus me plus... "Who else?" I asked the camera. "Who else did it count?" My mouth answered before I could label the voice as mine. "You brought her in," I said to myself. "You followed her earlier, remember? You chased her behind the houses. The town decided you were a pair." I didn't remember deciding that memory was true. The fog did the deciding for me. The recorder clicked in my pocket, unprompted, and played again, but the words continued this time. My voice threaded with static. "Don't let them count you. They can't keep what they can't name. They need to know how many chairs to set, how many plates. If you don't answer, they guess." The message warped, then returned. "They imitate first. They test you with 4. If you match them, they keep going. If you break the count, sometimes they lose your place. That's the only time you can leave, when they forget where you fit." The recorder clicked off. For a second, I believed there was a path that wasn't a loop, a fraction of a second. Then the fog at the end of the street stood up taller than the church and unfurled like a flag. The edges had fingers. I ran, not to leave. I knew leaving was a geometry problem I couldn't solve. I ran to confuse the part of Cold Creek that kept lists. I cut through alleys. I told the camera the wrong street names. I counted badly on purpose. 1, 3, 7, 2. I looked at the wrong house when the knocks came. I stood under a tree instead of a roof when I heard rain that wasn't there. I did everything wrong, and for a heartbeat, long enough to see how it might work, the fog hesitated like a clerk with a full tray trying to remember whether he'd already visited my table. I took my chance and ducked into the hardware store. Inside, the aisles were tight and upright, smelling like oil and rope fiber. My lantern threw shadows that refused to overlap perfectly with the shelves, like my light and the store's light were on bad terms. At the counter, a little square drawer cabinet. Hundreds of tiny knobs, little labels in pencil. Number 6 wood screw, 3 brad, finish nail. I pulled one open, empty. The next, full of bright nails, heads neat as buttons. I took one and it was warm the way coins are after a stranger's hand. I put it down. It rolled to the edge of the counter and stopped before it fell, as if the lip were magnetized. It wasn't. Behind the counter, a map of the county, different from the maps in the general store. No highways, just 2-lane roads and a ribbon of creek. Cold Creek wasn't labeled Cold Creek. It was a blank space with a thumbprint smudge. A pencil note above it read, "Keep off after 4:44. 4:44, I said to the recorder. That's when my watch froze. I traced a route with my finger away from the blank. The road gagged back on itself. A bell chimed once, not the doorbell, something inside the walls. Then thrice more, too fast, trying to cram the number 4 into one breath. I said loud, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the bell went silent so fast the silence rang. I breathed. The town hated when I counted first. Then I made a mistake. I looked into the hardware store's front window. My reflection waved. not a beat behind, not a copy with attitude. It waved exactly when I did, left hand to left hand, an impossible mirror that didn't reverse. The person in the glass looked exactly how I felt, raw, haunted, 1 inch from breaking, but his eyes were greener than mine, like the color had been turned up to see if I'd notice. He mouthed something, I couldn't hear it. I mouthed back, "Say it again." He did. The shape of the words was clear this time. "Turn around." I did. The little girl stood 5 feet away, dress wet with fog, hair plastered to her cheeks. She held a toy soldier like the one at my headstone. She looked smaller than 8 now. "They counted me," she said. "They don't usually count children twice. They do if you make them jealous." "Jealous of what?" I asked, already knowing I shouldn't. "Of remembering," she said simply. "You remembered me. They didn't like that." She pressed the toy soldier into my palm. It was hot, like it had been resting on a stove. "When it falls, leave," she whispered. "Don't look which way, just leave." "What about you?" She smiled the saddest smile I've ever seen. "I was supposed to be home before supper." The bell in the walls chimed again, once. Then the second chime stretched into something that wasn't sound, a pressure like standing in a plane during descent. My teeth ached. The girl looked up at the ceiling with eyes that had learned to be 40. "They're setting places," she said. "They're almost done." She stepped backward. With each step, her outline lightened. She faded the way fog fades, not away from the center, but from the edges inward until there was just a posture without a person to hold it. Then nothing. The toy soldier in my hand cooled. I didn't think. I didn't weigh my options. I flipped my hood up, crushed the action cam against my chest, and did the one thing every story about a haunted place says not to do. I ran. You expect screaming when a town disappears. You expect wind, thunder, a door slammed by the hand of God. Cold Creek went silent first. Real silent. The kind of quiet that makes you realize how loud your blood is. Then the edges of everything began to blur, the way frost crawls a window. The outline of the general store softened into a brighter gray. Like chunks of it were stepping backward through fog, deciding they'd never been boards, but suggestions of boards. The church roof lost its shingles 1 tile at a time without the tiles falling. They simply weren't there between one blink and the next. The sign at the road turned transparent, still swinging, still creaking, but you could see the other side of it through the letters. Population 65 hung in the air, numbers without wood, marks without ink. I cupped the toy soldier to my mic. "If it drops," I said, already moving, "if this falls..." It shivered once in my hand and hopped like a frog. I didn't wait for it to fall. I threw it. It arced through the air like a cheap prayer and never landed. It faded mid-flight, leaving behind a small, stupid hope that couldn't decide which way gravity ought to go. The moment it vanished, the sign twitched like a muscle and the numbers rippled. Population 64. My throat forgot how to be a throat. I laughed and it came out as a cough. "They miscounted," I said. "They lost one. They lost one!" The road from the square opened like an unspooled film strip. For the first time all night, it didn't fold back in front of me. The fog pulled away from it like lips from a tooth. I ran toward it. I didn't check my 6. I didn't say goodbye to any door that had tried to call me by my name. I didn't look at the church. I didn't look at the house where the woman had been standing in 2 places at once. I ran. And then, because Cold Creek is petty because the town either loved games or was a game, I heard my own voice from somewhere just behind my left shoulder. "Hey everyone, it's Ryan here. Today we're chasing another ghost story." It was my intro. from hours earlier, broadcast in a perfect imitation through a speaker that didn't exist. It didn't echo. It just sat in the air like a smell. My legs stuttered. I wanted to turn. I made myself not. The bell rang 4 times, fast. I counted louder than I've ever counted anything, marching the numbers like soldiers. 1, 2, 3, 4. I added a 5th for spite. 5. The air flinched. The road widened. The trees leaned away to make room. And that's when the fog did something I still don't know how to tell you in a way that makes sense. It showed me daylight. Not as a memory, not as a corner of the sky. As a thin slice laid across the road like a ribbon. Full sun, blue sky, a sparrow that actually chirped. The daylight ended in a clean line, as if someone had cut noon with a knife and set it on the table. I stepped up to it. The line hummed, almost inaudible, the same pitch my action cam sometimes makes when it's about to corrupt a file. I put my hand through. It was warm on the other side, the kind of warmth you forget you used to have access to whenever you wanted. Behind me, a knock, 3 times, gentle, then again, 9 total. Marched up the row of houses like a neighbor delivering pies to a street of funerals. A child's laugh. Wrong. My own voice playing back the part where I had said I wasn't scared. I took a breath, tasting sawdust and iron. I stepped forward. The step should have landed on gravel. It landed on tile. Motel tile. The air tasted like cheap citrus cleaner. The hum was a fluorescent ceiling light that hadn't been there a second ago. My hand was on the knob of my motel bathroom, and my action cam's red light was steady, not blinking. Outside the bathroom door, the motel TV chattered on low. On it, a local news segment looped with the volume off, captioning set to trial, not tribal, the way small stations always mess that up. I whispered without thinking. I made it. Then I heard the creak. Not the motel AC, not a floorboard. The town sign. I turned toward the bathroom mirror. The mirror didn't show me. It showed a dark 2-lane road and the edge of a wooden sign swinging on its chains. The angle I'd stood at before. The same splinter on the post. The camera in my hand filmed the bathroom. The mirror filmed Cold Creek. The sign slowed. The numbers shifted one by one as if a finger behind the glass pressed them into place. Population 63. My voice, my real voice, broke. "That's wrong," I said. "That's wrong!" From the TV, the volume suddenly rose on its own and my channel intro played. Not the one I'd recorded in the morning. A new one. The title blown out in white. The Village That Vanished After Sunset. Part 2. My face on screen. My mouth forming words I hadn't yet spoken. You can leave Cold Creek, but it doesn't leave you. The bathroom light flickered. The mirror fogged from the inside, and the door knocked behind me. 3 slow, neighborly beats. I didn't turn. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. The knocking stopped. The mirror cleared. The road and the glass was empty, and somewhere so close it might have been behind my teeth, the bell rang once. Cut to black. Scene 1. The motel that wasn't mine. When the bell rang inside my head, I froze at the bathroom door. The TV still looped my channel intro, same words, same smile, but I don't remember recording that smile. My hand shook as I reached for the remote. The screen blinked once and the hotel logo appeared. Cold Creek Inn. That name shouldn't exist. There was no inn in Cold Creek. I opened the curtains. Instead of the parking lot I'd left my car in that morning, there was fog, white, steady, pressed against the glass like a second wall. I whispered to the camera. Either I never left or the town came with me. Every clock in the room, TV, microwave, my watch that had restarted, all glowed 4:44 a.m. The same number that stopped time in the village. The bathroom mirror was still breathing. Condensation slid upward, not down. I wrote on it with my fingertip. Am I out? The fog inside the glass thinned, revealing the church bell tower instead of my reflection. The bell swayed once, then stilled. I grabbed the recorder from my pocket. It clicked before I could press play. They remember houses, my voice said. If you wake up indoors, you're still in them. I stepped into the hallway. It smelled of pine cleaner and dust, too old, too specific. The exit sign at the far end glowed red. I walked toward it. Each door I passed was numbered 19, all identical, all slightly ajar. From the first door, a whispered, room 13. From the second, room 13. By the fifth, they were whispering in sync, my name woven between Ryan, room 13. There was no room 13 in the hallway. When I reached the end, the exit sign led into another hallway of 19s. I realized I wasn't in a building. I was in a loop that learned architecture. On a side table sat a leather guest book. The pen was warm. Every entry was dated October 19th. Names faded after the first letter except one, mine. Under it, written in smaller hand, population 63. A fresh line below waited for a new name. The ink bled through the page even though the pen was dry. Something was writing without ink. I tore the page out. The paper healed itself. I powered up the action cam. The file list showed a new clip I hadn't filmed. Cold Creek Morning MP4. I pressed play. The video opened on a wide shot of the village under blue daylight. Everything normal. Birds chirping, people walking. Then the camera turned slow, deliberate, toward a man standing on the road with a backpack and a drone case. It was me. The man in the video raised his own camera, pointed it at whoever was filming and mouthed, "Get out." The footage stuttered, froze, then burned white like film melting under a projector bulb. When it cleared, the date stamp at the corner read Oct 19, 6:01 a.m. But dawn hadn't come. The motel clock still said 4:44. The door at the end of the hall opened by itself, spilling cold air that smelled like wet leaves and diesel. Outside was the village main street, exactly as I'd left it. Same church, same store, fog glowing with its own light. I stepped out, camera running. My car sat where it had died. The driver door was open, keys dangling. I said, half laughing, "You win, Cold Creek. You wanted another sunrise? Fine, let's watch it together." The fog pulsed once, like a breath caught in a chest. Then, birds. A sound I hadn't heard since morning before the first sunset. I looked up. The sky wasn't black or gray, it was blank, a smooth sheet with no color at all. The bell rang once, then twice, then 3 times. I waited, holding my breath, ready to count 4 aloud. But there was no fourth. The fog began to peel upward, revealing roofs, treetops, the valley below. It looked like dawn. Light touched the street, but it wasn't sunlight. It was the color of old paper, soft and wrong. Every building looked repainted, overexposed. People stood on porches, frozen mid-motion, faces blurred like unfinished sketches. I stepped closer. One turned its head. The skin on its cheek didn't move with the bone. It smiled anyway. "Welcome back," it said in the little girl's voice. I ran toward the church. The door opened for me. Inside, the pews were gone. Only a single table stood beneath the bell rope. On it, the mini DV tape, the toy soldier, and my car keys. Each labeled "Returned." The recorder in my pocket clicked again. "If the morning comes," my voice said, "don't trust it. It's just the night pretending." The bell began to move, slowly, creaking like it hadn't been used in 100 years. I set the camera on the table, pointed at myself, and started a new file. My name is Ryan. I came to Cold Creek to find a story. I think the story found me instead. If this video uploads, you'll see daylight behind me, but it isn't real. Don't come here, don't search for it. Because maybe the village doesn't vanish after sunset, maybe it just moves to wherever someone remembers it. The bell rang once more. The sound didn't fade. It expanded, filling the room until even the fog seemed to hold its breath. Everything went white. A police report filed in rural West Virginia noted a rental car found near an unmarked road. Inside, camera gear, a cracked mini DV camcorder, and a note written in permanent marker on the passenger seat. "Do not count me." The footage recovered from the action cam ends at 4:44 a.m. October 19th. The last frame is of a wooden sign barely visible through fog. It swings once, twice, then stops.